Good evening. Welcome to our main news on Loyola television. To present it, I'm Clement Mwanza. The headlines. Police to take punitive actions against all those found wanting in the ransacking of a national registration center. After a 2-week break, schools across the country are back in session today for children in examination classes. Health workers in Nigeria, including laboratory scientists, nurses, and pharmacists, have begun a nationwide strike to demand improved working conditions and a review of COVID-19 allowances. Japan's governing party has elected Yoshihide Suga as its new leader to succeed Shinzo Abe. And now the details. The police command says the action taken by United Party for National Development cadres to ransack the National Registration Center and steal equipment in Lukasha cannot be condoned. Yesterday, suspected UPND cadres stormed the registration center in Lukasha and destroyed some machinery being used during the ongoing mobile national registration card exercise. They also stole some equipment as well as beat up of officers they found at the office. Kakoma Kanganja, the police inspector general, has strongly condemned the action, stating that if there are any suspicions or concerns, police are open and ready to receive complaints from anyone regarding the exercise. Mr. Kanganja said the national registration exercise has no bearing on the by-elections, warning that police will follow the matter to the latter and will take punitive action against all those found wanting.
As police, we strongly condemn the action taken by the suspected UPND cadres. We are all aware that the mobile registration exercise is not a hidden process because there has been maximum publicity about this activity way back before this process was commenced. Further, this exercise is being done in broad daylight and not at night. Therefore, the action taken by UPND cadres to ransack the registration office and steal equipment is a big drawback to this process, which is being undertaken countrywide and cannot be condoned.
And 3 United Party for National Development campaign officials have been arrested in Lukasha constituency on accusations of malicious damage to property. The arrested officials are Patrick Mucheleka, the Deputy Secretary General in charge of politics, Elias Mubanga, the campaign manager for Lukasha, and Samuel Ongwira, the National Information and Publicity Secretary. The UPND has since denied the allegations labeled against the officials, saying it's a ploy by the ruling party to cause the suspension of the Lukasha by-election. But the ruling Patriotic Front says despite the confusion being perpetrated by the UPND, the party is confident to win in the by-elections. Sunday Chanda, the PF media director, said his party has put across messages of development and unity in purpose. Political parties have heightened campaigns in Lukasha and Mwansabombwe constituencies ahead of the September 17 by-election. The ruling Patriotic Front is looking to retain the Mwansabombwe seat, which fell vacant after the death of its member Rogers Mwewa, while the Lukasha seat fell vacant following the death of independent MP Mwenyamunkonge. 6 political parties are participating in the Lukasha election. They are the Patriotic Front, Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, United Party for National Development, People's Alliance for Change, United Party for Prosperous Zambia, and the Leadership Movement. Meanwhile, the Mwansabombwe election has attracted 5 political parties, namely PF, UPND, Leadership Movement, and UPPZ. But a non-governmental organization is impressed with the peaceful manner political parties are conducting themselves in the period leading to the Lukasha and Mwansabombwe by-elections. GEAR's initiative says political parties should continue to exhibit tolerance towards each other. Magdona Jipenzi, the GEAR's initiative executive director, was speaking in an interview with Loyola News in Lusaka. Mr. Jipenzi has also called on institutions directly involved in the elections to help the Electoral Commission of Zambia conduct credible and free elections by being objective in their execution of duties.
The directive piece that is being recorded in Mwansabombwe and also in Lukasha by all political parties for observing and appreciating tolerance as a key to holding credible elections. We expect that peace will continue, and we expect that these institutions will continue to play their referral role and not to be active campaigners in an election that is contested by different opponents. That's what we expect. And we expect that there will be efficiency in the management of the elections, including the results, so that no one expects any delay, and that the COVID measures shall be respected by all, and not one party and the other party.
Voters in Lukasha and Mwansabombwe go to the polls on Thursday, 17th September 2020 to elect their respective parliamentarians. We take our first break. Please take note that this main Loyola news and the news in brief are available for sponsorship. Still to come, Zambia needs innovators and entrepreneurs who can help turn around the economy grappling with the effects of the coronavirus. The COVID-19 pandemic undeniably affects the country's economic sector owing to the disruptions in the supply and value chains, among other factors. See you shortly after this break.
May we use these trying moments to rise to something that's important. Take life not for granted. Tell someone that you love them. If any of you have any COVID-19 symptoms, which are a fever of above 38 degrees Celsius, a cough, difficulty in breathing, shortness of breath, or chest pains, please do not hesitate to call 909 or 0974 49 35 53, and medical assistance will come your way. We hope for the better and leave everything in the hands of God. Together, we can combat COVID-19. Please stay at home for me. I stayed at work for you. Be that change.
Please do your best to stay at home. If you must leave your home, please remember to mask up. Keep social distancing of at least 1 meter and wash your hands often with soap and running water or any alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Welcome back. We continue with the news. After a 2-week break, schools across the country are back in session today for children in examination classes. The non-examination classes have continued with online lessons and other forms of remote learning. But with the continued prevalence of the coronavirus, what does the average school day look like? Our staffer, Elena Piri, brings us the details.
In its ongoing review of the coronavirus situation in the country under the new normal, government in May announced that primary and secondary schools reopen for pupils in examination classes only. Some pupils decided to stay away from school for fear of contracting the disease.
Most of our learners are attending classes as opposed to the earlier days when the term just opened. We used to have a limited number of pupils reporting because most of them were scared to go back to school.
Zambia National Union of Teachers says it is happy with the compliance levels in implementing COVID-19 preventive measures by schools in Lusaka.
All the schools are adhering. Our pupils in classes, all of them are putting on the masks. And also we have our pupils who have been put in rooms which are specially allocated, so to say. And then we have also put in our schools buckets almost on each and every entrance into the classroom.
New Avondale Academy is not taking any chance with the disease, but put in place facilities to ensure strict adherence to the COVID-19 preventive measures as advised by the Ministry of Health.
We are trying to implement all the measures of the new normal. Kids are not allowed to come to school without a mask, and they all know that they have to make sure they have hand sanitizer. The first thing they do when they get into the school, they make sure they have their temperature checked and they have to wash their hands. We have the school bus. The children are 3 on each seat. That means there's almost a meter apart. And then even in the classes, we're using 2 classes. The children still have to keep a meter.
For now, no one knows when pupils in non-examination classes will reopen as the pandemic keeps evolving, but one can only hope for the best. Elena Piri, Loyola News in Lusaka.
Thank you, Elena Piri, for that report. Pupils and students in non-examination classes will report on 21st September, while all universities and colleges affiliated to TVETA will resume classes on the 28th of September. Zambia needs innovators and entrepreneurs who can help turn around the economy grappling with the effects of coronavirus. The Zambia Development Agency says innovators and entrepreneurs must rise towards the economic recovery of the country. Gabriel Musetenkwa, the Acting Enterprise Development Director at the Zambia Development Agency ZDA, was speaking in an interview with Loyola News in Lusaka.
they are providing goods and services to the society. The government cannot provide all the necessary goods and services that are required. So as they come in, they're actually helping the government, to reach out where the government is not able to, to reach out. Then the other issue is pertaining to the improvement of the standards of living of the people that are involved within the same enterprises. They are earning something, and what they are earning is able to help them to cushion in terms of livelihood. They will be able to buy things that they wouldn't have bought if it were that these innovations had not come through.
Zambia has expressed gratitude to UNESCO for the opportunity to serve in the Committee of Cultural Sector. Christine Kasebasata, the Zambian ambassador to France, says the experience attained from the committee will go a long way in benefiting the country. Dr. Kasebasata was speaking at the 8th session of the General Assembly of the States Parties to the Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage, held at UNESCO headquarters in Paris, France.
While we acknowledge all the efforts towards priority Africa and appreciate the upstream dialogue within the framework of intangible cultural heritage, there is still a great need for strengthened support for Africa to enable Africa promote and safeguard its diverse and rich cultural heritage. In closing, Zambia would like to concur with the sentiments raised by its words, and we would like to ask the Secretariat what mechanisms is being put in place to deal with the backlog.
Dr. Kasebasata is also Zambia's permanent delegate to UNESCO. Zambia's expert is Mr. Munakayumba Munyima, who has been instrumental towards mobilizing funding for a project at the University of Zambia, the International Assistance Project for the Inventorying of Proverbs at the Lala ethnic group of Luano District and Moba Dance and Music of the Lenje ethnic group of Central Province. The COVID-19 pandemic has undeniably affected the country's economic sector owing to the disruptions in the supply and value chains, among other factors. The reduced business activity in the country has seen some entities focus on e-commerce to enable consumers access goods and services just by the click of a button. Under the new normal, this kind of trade is being encouraged to help observe the COVID-19 health measures instituted by the Ministry of Health. Moka Sibuku brings us this report.
Fast, efficient, and little to no human contact required, e-commerce in Zambia has continued providing consumers with the much-needed goods and services just by the click of a button. In the wake of COVID-19, many businesses have opted to provide online goods and services. The coronavirus outbreak is not only changing the way consumers shop, but also how they pay for their purchases. Anyone can simply log onto their computers or mobile phones and shop online. In most cases, this has provided an effective way of avoiding overcrowding and physical contact. Shabdin Mwemba is an economist.
So what happens is that actually you advertise your products, let's say on the internet, and then those who are interested, they'll show interest, on that system, and then thereafter, you also make arrangements of delivery. So you find that if you take advantage of e-commerce, instead of you waiting for sales, you can actually make sales, you can deliver, to make your life, easy, especially during this period of COVID-19.
With many people observing the Ministry of Health guidelines, some traders have been displaced from their usual trading areas, while others are taking turns to trade to prevent overcrowding. E-commerce has proven to be a necessary measure to help keep local businesses afloat during the period of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mokasibuku, Loyola News, Lusaka.
We take another break, and still to come, a man who inspired a Hollywood film about the 1994 Rwandan genocide has been arraigned in court 2 weeks after he was paraded to media in the capital Kigali following his controversial arrest. Neymar was one of 5 players sent off after an injury time brawl as Marseille beat Paris Saint-Germain in Ligue 1. These and many more stories, stay with us.
Coronavirus disease, COVID-19 pandemic, has upended lives of children and their families. While the health sector buckles, borders closed, businesses and schools shutter. As COVID-19 spreads, so was misinformation, fueling discrimination and stigma. Let's promote facts over fear. Let's bring out the trustworthy guidance to our parents, caregivers, and educators. Despite what you might think or feel, we are not your enemy. We're asking you to stop, be still, to listen. I stayed at work for you. Please, please, stay home. Be the change.
Please do your best to stay at home. If you must leave your home, please remember to mask up. Keep social distancing of at least 1 meter and wash your hands often with soap and running water or any alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
In international news, Tanzania's President John Magufuli has been challenged to a televised debate by his rival Tundu Lissu ahead of next month's election. President Magufuli is seeking a second 5-year term amid concerns of increased repression of opposition parties. Mr. Magufuli has not yet responded to the challenge. Mr. Lissu, the leader of Chadema party, said a televised debate of the presidential candidates will be healthy for the country's democracy. He told a campaign rally that President Magufuli shouldn't be afraid of debating a person who has never been a president like him. Health workers in Nigeria, including nurses, laboratory scientists and pharmacists, have begun a nationwide strike to demand improved conditions of service and payment of outstanding salaries. They also want a review of COVID-19 allowances. The strike by one of Nigeria's largest healthcare unions comes just days after doctors in the country suspended their strike last week over similar demands. The umbrella body of health workers in Nigeria, known as Joint Health Sector Union, says the 7-day nationwide warning strike becomes necessary after they exhausted other means of dispute resolution with the authorities. Tanzania and Uganda have signed an agreement allowing for the construction of a 1,445-kilometer crude oil pipeline. The $3.5 billion project will connect Uganda's oil fields to Tanzania's port of Tanga. The signing ceremony was attended by presidents of both countries. Oil reserves were found in Uganda in 2006, but production has been delayed partly by lack of infrastructure, including an export pipeline. A start date for construction has not yet been announced for what is set to become East Africa's first major oil pipeline. But there are warnings the project could come at a huge cost to some Ugandan communities. More than 12,000 families risk losing their land and livelihoods, according to a joint report by the International Federation for Human Rights and Oxfam. Conservationists have also warned that ecosystems are at risk from the drilling in Uganda's nature reserves. A man who inspired a Hollywood film about the 1994 Rwandan genocide has been arraigned in court 2 weeks after he was paraded to media in the capital Kigali following his controversial arrest. Paul Rusesabagina is accused of terror charges related to attacks by the rebel group National Liberation Front in southwestern Rwanda in 2018 and 2019. He has not yet commented on the charges. National Liberation Front is a military wing of MRCD Umbue, a Rwandan foreign-based platform of opposition parties. Mr. Rusesabagina is its vice president. Security was tight at the court building, with only selected journalists covering the proceedings. The journalists were tested for coronavirus before being allowed in court. Mr. Rusesabagina's family has assembled a group of international lawyers to represent him, along with a lawyer based in Rwanda, but they are yet to be allowed to present him in Rwanda. Rwanda's government said Mr. Rusesabagina, who had lived in exile in the US, held a Belgian passport, had chosen a team of 2 local lawyers, but his family questioned that choice and the independence of the lawyers. Japan's governing party has elected Yoshihide Suga as its new leader to succeed Shinzo Abe. This means that Mr. Yoshihide Suga is almost certain to become the country's next prime minister. Last month, Mr. Abe announced his resignation due to health reasons. Mr. Suga, 71-year-old, serves as chief cabinet secretary in the current administration and was widely expected to win. He is considered a close ally of Mr. Abe and likely to continue his predecessor's policies. Mr. Suga won the vote for the presidency of the Conservative Liberal Democratic Party by a large margin, taking 375 of a total of 534 votes from lawmakers and regional representatives. Now that LDP has chosen its new leader, there will be another vote on Wednesday in Parliament, where he is almost certain to be made Prime Minister. Taking over mid-term, Mr. Suga is expected to finish the rest of the current period until elections in September 2021. Born the son of strawberry farmers, Mr. Suga is a veteran politician. Grassroots Soccer Academy has today begun a 5-day training workshop for young people living with HIV/AIDS. The training is aimed at providing them with psychosocial skills that will allow them to deliver services in their respective local health facilities. Over 50 adolescents are participating in the training program being conducted at the Olympic Youth Development Center. Details in the following report.
Grassroots Soccer has begun a 5-day training workshop for adolescents living with HIV. The trainings were held at the Olympic Youth Development Center in Lusaka. Over 50 adolescents are being equipped with skills that will help them provide psychosocial support and assist in counseling their fellow adolescents in their respective communities.
What is happening here is we're conducting a training for young people to become skills coaches or peer educators. We use soccer metaphors to educate young people. So hence the language, when we say coaches, we're referring to peer educators that deliver the activities. So what we want to achieve first of all is to reach out to a lot of young people that are living with HIV and also that could be having issues with mental health, because we've incorporated mental health in our curriculum because there are so many mental health issues that young people are going through, depression that they're going through, especially those living with HIV, that they should be able to stand up and face their challenges and also access services. When they need help, they need to visit a psychosocial counselor who take them through the process so that they're able to live with the condition of HIV, so they accept their status and adhere to medication. And also need to help them suppress their viral load for those that could have high viral load, so that they're able to live a healthy life.
The young people are looking forward to giving back to their communities and assisting those that have various social and mental health challenges.
So it's important because when it's coming from a young person, it actually adds value, because here is me talking to a person who's like me. Rather than if I was to talk to a person who's much older than me, I would feel uncomfortable and I wouldn't open up to actually tell them the things that I go through or maybe the challenges that I face.
Grassroots Soccer Academy is a local non-profit organization that incorporates the use of sport in advancing social change and access to platforms for sharing of best practices among young people and adolescents in Zambia. Mokasibuku, Loyola News.
South Korea's Miriam Lee won her first major title at the ANA Inspiration after a 3-way playoff. The 29-year-old beat Nelly Konda and Brooke Henderson, who had tied for the lead after the 3rd round with a birdie on the first extra hole. She shot a 5 under par 67 in the final round, including 3 chip-ins and an eagle on the 18th to tie on 15 under during regulation play. Victory marks world number 44, Lee's 4th LPGA title and her first since 2017. Her previous best finish at a major came at the 2016 British Open when she tied for 2nd. Neymar was one of 5 players sent off after an injury time brawl at Marseille beat Paris Saint-Germain in Ligue 1. As he left the pitch, the PSG's Brazil forward told the 4th official he had heard a racist comment. Florian Thauvin scored the only goal as PSG lost their opening 2 league games for the first time since 1984-1985. Home substitutes Leandro Paredes and Leven Kuzawa and Marseille's Jordan Amavi and Dario Benedetto were dismissed along with Neymar. The referee watched a video assistant referee VAR replay of a punch by Neymar before showing the 28-year-old a straight red card. After the match, Neymar posted on social media to say that his only regret was not hitting Marseille's Spanish defender Alvaro Gonzalez in the face having struck him on the back of the head. In response, Gonzalez denied claims of any wrongdoing, posting on social media, "There is no place for racism." The game, which was watched by a crowd of about 5,000 fans at the Parc des Princes, was fractious even before that late brawl. There were 17 cards shown, a record for a League One game in the 21st century. That sporting item brings us to the end of our news, but before we go, here's a look at stories that made headlines. Police to take punitive action against all those found wanting in the ransacking of a national registration center in Lukasha. Yesterday, suspected UPND cadres stormed the registration center in Lukasha and destroyed some machinery being used during the ongoing mobile national registration card exercise. Kakuma Kanganja, the police inspector general, has strongly condemned the action, stating if there are any suspicions or concerns, police are open and ready to receive complaints from anyone regarding the exercise. After a 2-week break, schools across the country are back in session today for children in examination classes. The examination classes have continued with online lessons and other forms of remote learning. Pupils and students in non-examination classes will report on 21st September, while all universities and colleges affiliated with TVETA will resume classes on 28 September. Health workers in Nigeria, including nurses, laboratory scientists, and pharmacists, have begun a nationwide strike to demand improved working conditions and payment of outstanding salaries and a review of COVID-19 allowances. The strike by one of Nigeria's largest healthcare unions comes just days after doctors in the country suspended their strike last week over similar demands. Japan's governing party has elected Yoshihide Suga as its leader to succeed Shinzo Abe. This means that Mr. Yoshihide Suga is almost certain to become the country's prime minister. Last month, Mr. Abe announced his resignation due to health reasons. On that note, we have come to the end of our news. On behalf of the entire news and production crew, I'm Clement Mwanza. Good night and God bless.